everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Whatever Happened To, the series where we take a where are they now look at players who found success in the National Hockey League but are no longer permanent fixtures in the league, either due to controversy, poor play, or just rotten luck. In today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at an 11-year veteran of the league and an NHL All-Star. Well, technically he was, but we'll get into that later. As we ask, whatever happened to Tobias Enstrom? After being selected 239th overall in the 8th round of the 2003 NHL entry draft by the Atlanta Thrashers, Tobias Enstrom spent the next 4 seasons with Modo Hockey of the Swedish Hockey League, where he scored 58 points in 184 regular season games, as well as 15 points in 32 playoff games. Enstrom was also able to win some silverware during his time in Sweden, as he won the Elite Syrian Championship in 2007 and the Under-20 Super Elite Championship with Modo's youth team in 2004. Having developed his game in his home country for several years after he was drafted, Enstrom had caught the attention of his NHL franchise and was about to get his chance to suit up in the best league in the world. Before moving to North America though, the Thrashers needed to sign Enstrom to a contract. So, on May 21st, 2007, they signed him to a 2-year entry-level contract worth an average annual value of $750,000 a season. And thus, Enstrom's NHL career began. The 07-08 season saw Enstrom make the Thrashers roster out of training camp and take to the ice with the team for the first time. Enstrom had a pretty impressive rookie season in the National Hockey League, as the former 8th round pick scored 5 goals and 33 assists for 38 points in 82 games. This production earned Enstrom a place at the 2008 NHL Young Stars game, as well as a spot on the 2008 All-Rookie team. However, this wouldn't translate to postseason success for the Atlanta Thrashers, as they missed out on the playoffs for the second time since the 04-05 lockout. Those of you who are aware of the Thrashers' stint in the NHL will know that missing the playoffs was a pretty common occurrence for the team. So apologies if I sound like I'm repeating myself throughout this video. Just looking at a list of Thrashers' seasons in the league is enough to make any hockey fan shed a tear. But anyway, Tobias Enstrom had made a strong first impression in the National Hockey League as a 22-year-old. But this Swedish defenceman was only just getting started. The 08-09 NHL season saw Enstrom go through a slight sophomore slump as his production somewhat took a dip compared to his rookie year in the league, since he scored 5 goals and 27 assists for 32 points in 82 games. This small step backwards didn't help Atlanta's hopes of making the playoffs, as they missed out on the postseason for the second straight year since Enstrom had joined the team. After his 2-year entry-level contract had ended, and having shown the potential to become a key roster player for Atlanta moving forwards following back-to-back good seasons, the Thrashers felt that the next contract they offered Enstrom needed a longer term and hefty pay rise in order to keep him around. So, on September 24th, 2008, they signed him to a 4-year, $15 million contract worth an average annual value of $3.75 million a season. 6 years after he was drafted, Enstrom had just earned his first multi-million-dollar contract, which he would certainly live up to in the following seasons. The 09-10 NHL season saw Enstrom establish himself as a key roster player for the Thrashers and take a real step forward in his development and production, as the former 8th round pick potted 6 goals and 44 assists for 50 points in 82 games in the first year of his multi-million-dollar contract. Whilst Enstrom would improve on his previous season numbers, Atlanta was still unable to clinch a playoff berth, as they missed out on the playoffs once again. The 10-11 NHL season saw Enstrom have the most productive year in his NHL career, as he scored 10 goals and 41 assists for 51 points in 72 games. This standout season earned Enstrom his first and only call-up to the NHL All-Star game, but he was unable to attend due to suffering a broken finger. This injury also ended Enstrom's streak of consecutive games played with Atlanta at 296, a franchise record for the Thrashers. Whilst Enstrom would have a career year for Atlanta, the Thrashers missed out on the playoffs for the 4th straight year. After another year of disappointment for Atlanta fans, things were about to get a whole lot worse, as their beloved hockey franchise was relocating across the Canadian border. Though his team would be changing cities, Enstrom would begin to grow into his eventual role in the National Hockey League as a top 4 defenceman that could score a point or two when needed. The 11-12 NHL season saw Enstrom suit up for the newly relocated and renamed Winnipeg Jets, where he took a step back in his production compared to his past 2 seasons and returned to similar production during his first couple of years in the league, as he scored 6 goals and 27 assists for 33 points in a season where he was limited to just 62 games. This noticeable drop in production did nothing to help the Winnipeg Jets clinch a playoff spot, as the franchise would miss out on the postseason yet again. Lack of playoff success seems to be the main attribute that the Jets brought with them from Atlanta, so if I sound like a broken record again, just make sure you blame the team for being so bad and not the narrator for saying it, alright? Moving on, after his 4-year contract he had signed back with the Thrashers in 2008 had ended, and having established himself as a consistent 30-point scorer, a reliable player in his own zone, and a leader in the locker room, Winnipeg knew that they needed to keep the Swedish defenceman on the roster and avoid him signing with another team as an unrestricted free agent. So, on July 27, 2012, they signed him to a 5-year, $28.75 million contract worth an average annual value of $5.75 million a season. Just like that, Enstrom had signed the biggest contract of his career. And although he would never again reach his previous career highs, Enstrom wanted to show that this was money well spent. But first, there was a lockout. During the 12-13 lockout, Enstrom, like many other NHL players at the time, decided to take his talents overseas, as he signed with Red Bull Salzburg of the EBEL. Enstrom scored just a single goal in 5 games during his brief stint with the team before the lockout ended and the NHL season got underway. Enstrom returned to the Jets lineup but struggled to stay healthy, and in turn saw his production pretty much cut in half, as he potted 4 goals and 11 assists for 15 points in just 22 games. This rough season for Enstrom didn't help Winnipeg finally make the playoffs, as the Jets missed out on the postseason for yet another year. The 13-14 NHL season saw a much healthier Enstrom rejoin the Jets lineup and return to his previous season form, as the former 8th round pick scored 10 goals and 20 assists for 30 points in 82 games. The first time he had played all 82 games in a season since his sophomore season in the league 4 years ago. Though Enstrom would be back to his old self again, this improvement in his production compared to his past season couldn't help Winnipeg finally return to the postseason, as, say it with me folks, the Jets missed out on the playoffs once again, making it the 7th straight season the franchise hadn't made the playoffs. When your playoff drought has lasted as long as the Buffalo Sabres current drought has, you know things aren't going very well for your franchise. Well, at least they aren't as bad as the Carolina Hurricanes. The 14-15 NHL season saw Enstrom take a step back compared to his past season in pretty much every single stat, as the Swedish defenceman potted 4 goals and 19 assists for 23 points in 60 games. Though he would see a noticeable drop in his production, Winnipeg finally made the playoffs! Way! They made it, finally! Congratulations, Winnipeg, it's been so long! However, Enstrom recorded a single assist as the Jets were swept in the first round by the Anaheim Ducks. At least they made it though, right? Though he remained a steady presence on the back end for the Jets, Enstrom's point production and ability to stay healthy was starting to falter, as his age went up, whilst his minutes and role on the team went down. With 3 years still left on his mega contract, the 30-year-old would see his career in the best league in the world gradually come to a close over the following seasons. The 15-16 NHL season saw Enstrom suit up in more games than his past season, but his point production took a heavy hit, as he scored 2 goals and 14 assists for 16 points in 72 games, his worst season to date since joining the National Hockey League 9 years ago. This down season for Enstrom didn't help Winnipeg return to the playoffs for the 2nd straight year, as the Jets missed out on the postseason. The 16-17 NHL season saw a continuation in the decline of Enstrom's production, as the former 8th round pick scored just a single goal and 13 assists for 14 points in 60 games. This slight drop in his numbers compared to the season prior once again didn't help Winnipeg clinch a playoff berth, as they missed out on the playoffs for the second straight year. Unfortunately, Enstrom's career in the NHL had started to go downhill fast as the Swede was entering his mid-30s. Though he was approaching the final year of his 5-year contract with the Jets and was looking to show he still had some gas left in the tank, things were about to go from bad to worse. The 17-18 NHL season saw Enstrom have the worst season of his entire 11-year NHL career, as he scored a measly 1 goal and 5 assists for 6 points in a season limited to just 43 games, either due to injury or inconsistent play. Maybe both, who knows? What we do know is Enstrom had a really bad year. However, the Jets were able to clinch a playoff berth for the first time in 3 years, so I guess miracles really do happen. Though they would return to the postseason, Enstrom would go scoreless in 11 games, as the Jets were eliminated in the Western Conference Finals by the Vegas Golden Knights. After his 5-year, $28.75 million contract with the Jets had expired, and having seen his production go from okay to disappointing to falling off a cliff in that span, Winnipeg weren't interested in re-signing Enstrom thanks to their carefully selected pool of defensive prospects, who showed more potential upside and benefit to the team than keeping Enstrom. This sentiment was felt by the rest of the teams in the league, as Enstrom found little interest, if any at all, from teams around the league in signing him for the current 18-19 season. Rather than wait around and see if anyone would eventually need him, Enstrom decided to return home to Sweden on August 25th, 2018, as he signed a 1-year contract with Modo Hockey of the Swedish Allsvenskan, to return to the team he had played for before joining the NHL 13 years ago. To this day, Tobias Enstrom is a member of the Modo Hockey roster. At the time of this recording, the captain of the team has scored 23 points in 46 games, so it looks like playing against less refined opponents has given him the chance to find his previous point production from seasons past. Since his contract expires at the end of the season and he will once again become a free agent, I'm sure that Enstrom will find a team interested in signing him, considering he has found his production again. It's just a case of where. Maybe he'll stick with the Allsvenskan, maybe he moves to the SHL, perhaps the KHL may come calling, or he might even retire. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But regardless of what Enstrom decides to do once this season ends, there is no doubt that he forged himself a pretty impressive NHL career. In 719 regular season games, Enstrom scored 54 goals and 245 assists for 308 points, as well as scoring 1 point in 15 playoff games. His playoff stats obviously weren't that good, but to be fair, he did play on some pretty mediocre Thrashers teams during his prime. So I'll blame the franchise for this one, not the player. Though Enstrom's style of play wasn't always able to get the respect it deserved on the stat sheet, he was able to be a pretty productive player over his stint in the bigs, and he managed to have himself a pretty solid career in the best league in the world. I'm sure there are plenty of other players who were picked before him in the 2003 draft that wish they could have had a career as successful as Enstrom's. And there you go. That's what happened to Tobias Enstrom. What do you think about Enstrom's career? Is it good, bad, or do you think he should still be playing in the NHL? Also, is there another player that you would like me to look at as part of this series? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. A big thank you to Chris Gadsby, Kalesbro, Matt DeWild, Max Artis, and Nat Marlowe, as well as a huge thank you to Ryan Todd for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.